Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coleslaw of My Consciousness. So this one is based on a writing prompt from my writing group that I've been working with. The prompt was basically a task that you normally wouldn't do for yourself, but doing it for yourself, like a do-it-yourself project type of idea. And then also semi-inspired by pumpkins, because we sometimes do multiple prompts, and pumpkins was the second prompt for more of a mini piece, and it inspired me to actually figure out how to do my do-it-yourself part. So, without further ado, here's my little piece. So, I haven't carved pumpkins in years. Kaylee laughed. I couldn't tell. After all, your house is only decorated with light-up pre-carved pumpkins that you could just put away in a box for most of the year. I grinned still. But I have heard that doing crafty things is supposed to be cathartic. So you pick out a pumpkin or two, and I'll make sure that we get a good carving set for all of our pumpkins. Kaylee nodded, seeming a bit distracted, staring at the variety of pumpkins that was available. We arrived home about an hour later, pumpkins and carving set in hand. Kaylee had picked out several rather traditional-looking pumpkins, whereas I had been unable to resist picking a couple of the white-skinned ones. "Do you want to get started right away?" Kaylee nodded, a somewhat eager response for a nearly grown teenager. "All right, I'll get the table set up." I went to go find some large garbage bags that we could stretch across the kitchen table to hopefully lessen the mess from pumpkin guts. We were several minutes into the surprisingly rewarding task of chopping through the tops of our pumpkins when I broached the subject that had been on my mind since Kaylee had asked to visit for Halloween. "So, how are things going at home? Did this summer away help home life at all?" Kaylee shrugged and carried on viciously stabbing through her pumpkin. "In some ways, especially at first. But as time passes, they just slip more and more into old habits. I'm trying to hold on to what I gained this summer, but without someone who lives that way to support me, it's kind of hard." "Do you mean going to church? Have you looked for missionaries that could help you get acquainted with a ward?" Kaylee grimaced. "Well, yeah, but it didn't help. Melanie and Dad are just unsupportive of me going and don't want anything to do with it. I can drive myself at least, but it makes for very lonely Sundays, and it doesn't always feel worth it. Sometimes it even feels like they're purposefully planning family adventures on Sundays to encourage me not to go." I set down my carving tools and pulled my niece into a tight hug. "I'm sorry you have to face that. I didn't ever imagine Melanie would be so hard about religion. We didn't really have one growing up, but I thought we at least had a sense of God." Kaylee nodded and pulled me tighter into the hug. "Dad, too. Neither of them seems fond of the idea of religion being something you participate in. I wish it were easier. Unfortunately, that's not how life plays out to be." My thoughts were on the unfairness and injustice of having lost Howard so early in life. But I've found that participating in religion helps give me courage and strength to carry on through the hard times. I wish I had your faith with it. Keep on believing that, and you can. And before you know it, you will be there. That's how it worked for me, and that's how the scriptures promise it'll work. Line upon line, precept upon precept. "Thank you," she whispered, and we let the hug last for several more minutes in silence. So, that's the end of my piece. Still kind of a shorter one, but hopefully at least sort of fun one and kind of Halloween-y themed, which, I mean, when you're inspired by the word pumpkin, what else would you expect? But yeah, the character here I was picturing as, if you can guess from the first lines of it, someone who doesn't really carve pumpkins, hasn't really carved pumpkins since she was a lot younger, and that kind of thing. So I figured carving pumpkins could be her do-it-yourself activity. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments, suggestions, etc., feel free to comment down below, and I'll see you guys in my next episode. This is the Umlaut Herper signing out.